All right, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome also Dr. Savides and Irene joining us here for RPIW 27 on patient complaints and grievances processes. Andreas is also joining us, so great. We have a lot of team members here. We really want to bring you guys into the room with us, into our RPIW room. We are using the Gemba room at Lightwave, and we really made it Gemba this week. We are going to take the computer around the room, but we don't want to make you dizzy while we do that. So when we go to that next station, we're going to turn the camera off, and then we'll turn it back on when we get to that place. If you turn your Zoom to speaker view, when we get to that place and that area of speaking, it will pop up big. So then you can see what's in the background and what they're talking about. And let's see, we're going to take questions at the end. So if you have any questions, please, if you can just write them down, or you can put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. I'm going to be monitoring chat, and we're also going to have a Q&A session at the end where we repeat the questions to the Zoom audience and then have somebody answer it. And also welcome Sarah, our other team member from THT. We're calling everybody out as you come on because we want everybody in the room to know who is here and listening to us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn off my mute and turn off my speakers so that we don't have any feedback here. So give us a second to transition over to our teams.
Good afternoon. What we're going to start with today is our current state process map at a very high level overview. I think one of the most important things to point out is at the beginning of this map, it is every single entity, every lane is one entity involved in this process. The beginning part of this process also shows how the complaints come in, whether it's bedside, ambulatory care, through our care nav, and then how it reaches our patient experience department.
In our current state, we were able to identify multiple partners that we're currently working with who have an impact in how we respond or are able to resolve some of these complaints to our patients. And so although we did identify that their workflows might not necessarily change, we also identified different opportunities that we labeled in pink progress so that they can make those enhancements in the future. And next, I will have Chris share some of our rocks in our shoes.
So we actually had the Rocks in Our Shoes posters hung in patient experience for about 2 months. Everyone was able to participate, and we kind of came up with 3 overriding themes, one of which is the need for a consistent process by which the feedback is done with an intake, how that is routed to the experience specialist, and how our experience specialists make that initial call. Also, another theme was how patients and their families are being directed to or referred to patient experience. And then also we found a lack of education around the organization with the regulatory component to what we do in general, as well as tools and resources for de-escalation techniques. And next I will turn it over to Carly to go over the value stream map.
Thanks, Chris. So we took a look at our value stream map, which really looks at the high level steps within the process of receiving a complaint or grievance and then closing it, from our patient experience team, working the case, working with other departments, and then closing it. And the different times in between can really vary because there can be a lot of variation in this process. So all of the pink Post-its are the opportunities that we identified as we discussed through this value stream map. So like I mentioned, there's a lot of variability in communication processes, sometimes with the documentation, and that really lends to limited data that makes it difficult for us to really be able to identify how long this truly takes and then to be able to eventually see improvement. But a lot of the things that came out of the The paint cloudbursts are a couple themes like equipping our leaders to have the knowledge and tools to really address complaints and grievances in the moment so we can really get towards that first resolution and they don't need to necessarily go up to the We Listen team. There was a lot of talk around helping train and provide education to our team members, not just We Listen, but also our frontline staff and leadership on the de-escalation process of working with really difficult patients or patients who are super escalated that we can then bring them down and hopefully not need to go to We Listen. We can resolve those in the moment as well. And then one of the other big components that came out of looking at this value stream is really our partnership between each other. So We Listen and our other departments, team members, so that we can come together in order to resolve these issues for our patients in a timely manner. I am going to pass it over to Mary, who will be going over the fishbone.
Okay, folks. The fishbone is a lean tool that we use to help identify the root cause of the process we're trying to improve. And this is blank right now, but earlier in the day, we had filled with sticky notes. And we had 6 categories on our fishbone, which then we are grouped into 4 work groups. And those 4 work groups are situation response guide, also tackling leadership, partnership, or involvement. We have team member experience, and involved in that is first call resolution. And then we have a 3rd group, data optimization, that is also going to be looking at trends and our root causes. And lastly, our 4th work group is on education. And within education, we're going to focus on intake form champions for the We Listen patient experience, and then understanding our policies. And these 4 work groups each have a leader from our team here, and they will be working on implementation plans for the next year. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it off to Kendra, who's going to go over our future state.
Okay, so this is what we have for our future state. And as Carla and Siobhan pointed out, we have several swim lanes here of all the groups, how we're getting patient complaints from start to finish. And in looking at everything, we really noticed that there's a huge bottleneck in our intake and patient experience specialist lanes. We Listen has become a sort of catch-all for issues that may not be addressed in the beginning of when a patient is getting escalated and issues that keep arising again and again. So our goal is to really think about and push work in ways that make sense. And what I mean by that is working with our management, with our leadership teams, with our ambulatory groups, our inpatient groups, our Care Nav hub, and giving them the tools they need to help patients in the moment, to address needs, to set expectations, and to perform service recovery on the spot. So issues that can be addressed in the moment by the people who are in the moment with that patient never make it to patient experience and never make it to an intake. It makes patients happy because their problems are getting addressed right away, and it relieves some of the burden where complaints are coming into patient experience, and patient experience is essentially having to be a middleman between multiple different groups. What we'd also like to do is more on the, back end, and all the data we're gathering from patient experience, because they really are a sort of bucket of data. What areas are we having the most issues in? What issues are making patients the most upset? Is taking that data and partnering with groups, all these groups and other groups not listed here, our physician groups, our nursing groups, our ambulatory groups, our consultative groups like risk, regulatory, quality, and taking that data and learning from it and using it to institute corrective action. So hopefully issues that we keep seeing repeatedly don't keep happening. And then again, we relieve some of the burden on patient experience to not have to keep addressing the same issues over and over. We did review some research from the Cleveland Clinic, their patient experience group, about severity scaling patient complaints. And what we'd like to do is use that in the patient experience process to not only make sure that the right folks in patient experience are addressing complaints, but that we are escalating data appropriately. Low severity complaints may not necessarily need to be escalated, but high severity, high complexity complaints are getting escalated to the right people, and we're looking at solutions. And that's essentially the long and short of it. And now I'm going to turn it over to Carrie for questions.
Hi, guys. And we have a few more people in the room too, that I want to introduce to. So, we have our sponsor, Leslie Wilson here. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Carly. It's like, I think it's Carly, but Carly's over here. Sorry, we have a new team member. Ashley Gambier, Amy Kosovas, and Dr. Moore. So we're happily have a lot of people here also that we want to answer questions. And so we want to open it up. We can only have one speaker on in the room. So if you guys have questions here, go ahead and type them into the chat and we will read them off from our other computers so that we can have one central location and that person can, people can come up and answer. So anybody in the room or on Zoom want to have any conversation, questions? A little bit of tech stuff. We're bringing everybody in the room. Questions, guidance for us? Anything we missed?
So just details, because you know, I'm a late learner. So Cleveland Clinic has some severity categories. And are you proposing that we adopt them or review them and decide about them? How are the Cleveland Clinic categories going to be brought into, or are they already in our workflow?
So we have just gotten, we gave everybody homework last night to look at this evidence-based journal and kind of read over it. And our reaction to it is that we would love to have something like this in place. And we don't know if we would adopt the entire exact thing, but one of our work groups will look at that and say, is this appropriate for UCSD? And do we need to identify different levels? And I don't think we said enough in our report out about how much we're going to rely on this situational response guide. By the way, I'm going to give kudos to Terry Meyer for bringing this to us because she has that with her team. And it just says that, just the title says, here's a situation, here's how to respond. We want to equip everybody with the tools that we have, right? And so our vision of that is we're going to kind of have a process map up front with, you know, maybe step number 3, look at page 6 for how to deal with this situation. So that is kind of a high level of what we were thinking of for that. So we haven't fleshed all of that out yet, but it is something that we really want to look at and then integrate into that situational response guide. And is everybody in agreement with my summary?
Wonderfully done.
The crickets.
That was perfect.
I have a question. What was the biggest aha so far? You've been here for 2 days. You know, oftentimes bringing a bunch of people together, look at the same problem from different vantage points. There's some light bulb moments.
Did you guys hear that? What were our aha moments? And so we'd love to hear from everybody. We don't want to make everybody dizzy with that. So we could, I can just call it out. I'll repeat it, you guys.
I would say like I knew it, but I didn't know how much I think our patient experience department has been fielding. It really does feel like they've been, I don't know if it's the right thing to say, but kind of like a dumping ground for things that if we as operational leaders can't figure it out, we just send them to We Listen, you know? So it's more of just like a terping versus, not for me personally, but in general, like it's not as much of a partnership as it should be. And that there's so much we can do as leaders and frontline staff on the front end of this so that our patient experience specialists are not getting just inundated. But that was a big aha moment for me. How much they were getting. You guys are great.
I think for me, it's been an eye-opening about how much collaboration needs to be involved in a successful grievance and complaint program. The collaboration and the coordination of getting the right information to the right people at the right time to solve the problem for the patient was quite eye-opening to me.
Well, along those lines, I was just what's eye-opening for me was that there were groups of people that I didn't even think were involved in the resolution process. Billing, I never even thought, like, why is billing involved or how, but then actually, as I really sit here and think, yes, they're an integral part of this process. So until you go through this actual process, you don't really get to bring out all the various individuals and processes that are in place. And so it is really a complex situation, but this has been a great process for me as an individual so far.
Not monitoring chat. They said, we just found out we're on mute. Okay. We're not. Do we have, oh, got to sit on glasses. Do we have a plan on how we will educate management across the organization and how to de-escalate these situations? We don't have a detailed plan yet, but that'll be day 4. So we're definitely going to go through that. It is one of the top things. I'll say, we started on our future state process map. It was very different than starting on our current state, because here we said, we're starting with the complaint. And on our future state, we said, we're going to start with education. We're going to start where it happens. We're going to start when they very first start escalating and we think there might be an issue. What can we do? And we want to equip management, team members, everyone with those tools. And I think we talked a little bit about our root cause and what we're going to do with root causes. And, you know, the teams are just isolated. Like, I need to deal with this. I don't know who to go to. I have no idea, you know, who's going to help me figure this out. Well, we really want this to be a fluid process. So it's obvious, you know, if this department isn't answering, or they always give us the same answer and they don't make a change, we can do a root cause analysis. We can get them in the room. We can get their leadership in the room, and we can say, hey, you know, what kind of hurdles do we need to jump over in order to get through this process and really make this better for our patients? Because nobody here comes to work to not serve our patients. Like, we're all here for our patients. So that is very much a theme. I mean, I'd say on every single one of these posters. I think that's the only question I see. Anything else? Guidance?
I'd like to just ask, so we talked about both the patient experience and the team member experience. Can you add anything more to just the discussion of what you found in improving the team members or the leaders' experience through the process?
If I could, oh, go ahead.
For the team member experience, I think what we learned through our root cause analysis was that they have a really hard job. I mean, we knew that, but then having that kind of a difficult job with the constant influx of people, not the most positive, really takes a toll on the psyche, right? And that we really need to establish and create self-care tools for our patient experience specialists and create an environment that's conducive to helping them de-escalate after they have a patient, yelling at them. And I like to look at like our nervous system and our vagus nerve and that kind of thing. And so, but from the team member experience, that was one thing. And if our team members, if our patient experience specialists are feeling calmer and more equipped to help our patients, and they're going to provide more quality service to our patients.
There's also the theme of, from a staffing perspective, whether there was enough staff, right? They're overwhelmed, then their caseload is high. And so there was some discussion that kept coming up also in the fishbone, in the cause and effect analysis.
Their infrastructure too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building a house, you don't have to build the roof first, you
Right.
got to build the foundation. So I think really taking a look at those foundational components that are going to lead to that, a better experience, having the tools in which to do the best work.
And I think in recognizing that you see the ambulatory care, you see UCSD in general has grown so much. And so really right sizing the staff like we do in our other departments, like this volume requires this amount of FTE, this, and that stuff we'll explore as we go through the team member experience with the group.